You are probably aware of the story, maybe you're not, of Amber Thurmon. This is a story driven by ProPublica, and there are a whole lot of angles on this story that we need to understand. At least 2 women in Georgia died after they couldn't access legal abortions and timely medical care in their state, ProPublica has found. And so ProPublica does this story about Amber Thurmon. And Amber Nicole Thurmon suffered from sepsis in a suburban Atlanta hospital. She had taken an abortion pill and encountered a rare complication. She had not expelled all the fetal tissue. She showed up at a hospital in Georgia for a routine D&C procedure. But her state had made performing the procedure a felony, says ProPublica. Any doctor who violated the new Georgia law could be prosecuted. Thurmon waited in pain in a hospital bed, worried about what would happen to her 6-year-old. It took 20 hours for doctors to operate. By then it was too late, and she died. That is what they claim. They would feel the need to wait for a higher blood pressure, wait for a higher fever. Really got to justify this one. Bleed a little more, says Dr. Melissa Kotke, an OBGYN at Emory, warning lawmakers during the hearing. Doctors and a nurse involved in Thurmon's care declined to explain their thinking and did not respond to questions from ProPublica. So what you should know is that ProPublica, without any information from the doctors, decided to run a story and extrapolate from it that this woman died because of Georgia's abortion law. Thurmon wanted a surgical abortion close to home and held out hope as advocates tried to get the ban paused in court. But as her pregnancy progressed to its 9th week, she couldn't wait any longer. She scheduled a D&C in North Carolina, where abortion at that stage was still legal. And on August 13th, woke up at 4 a.m. to make the journey with her best friend. On their drive, they hit standstill traffic. The clinic couldn't hold Thurmon's spot longer than 15 minutes. It was inundated with women. Instead, a clinic employee offered Thurmon a 2-pill abortion regime approved by the FDA. Her pregnancy was within the standard of care for the treatment. Getting to the clinic had required scheduling a day off work, finding a babysitter, making an excuse at the clinic. She sat through a counseling session in which she was told how to safely take the pills and instructed to go to the emergency room if complications developed. She signed a release saying she understood. She took the first pill there and insisted on driving home before the symptoms started. She took the second pill the next day. She had complications. And she died. And what ProPublica, which is a left-wing organization, has done is it has decided to blame Georgia's fetal heartbeat ban. And the Kamala Harris administration is now advancing the story, targeting people in Georgia, claiming that it is because of this law. Here's the actual truth of the matter. And thankfully, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in Georgia has actually allowed a actual doctor to write an op-ed on this case and explain the actual law in Georgia. Christina Francis is the doctor. So you have ProPublica, not doctors, who did not talk to Amber Thurmon's doctors, writing a story extrapolating based on anecdote and agenda that Georgia's fetal heartbeat law cost this woman her life. Here is Dr. Francis, an actual doctor. The 28-year-old medical assistant obtained abortion drugs from an abortion clinic in North Carolina, where induced abortion is legal at 9 weeks gestation. Thurmon took the first drug, mifepristone, at the clinic. Staff instructed her to take the second drug, misoprostol, at home and visited an emergency room if she had complications. After experiencing increasingly concerning symptoms over the next several days, heavy bleeding, vomiting blood, and fainting, she was transported by ambulance to the hospital. Despite being found to have retained tissue in her uterus, a common complication of this kind of an abortion, and starting antibiotics for sepsis, her condition worsened to the point of requiring open abdominal surgery. Tragically, she died. The reason Georgia's abortion law isn't responsible for Thurmon's death is simple. It explicitly allows physicians to intervene in cases of medical emergencies or if the fetus has no detectable heartbeat, both of which applied in Thurmon's case. Any assertion she experienced a delay in care as a secondary effect of the law is speculation. One thing is clear. She died from a legal chemical abortion, which abortion advocates have argued is safer than Tylenol. And that's the point here. ProPublica doesn't want to talk about the claim that the abortion pill is as safe as Tylenol because actually, as this doctor notes, an actual doctor, at 9 weeks, it is very often the case that with the supposedly safer than Tylenol abortion drugs, parts of the child do not exit during the abortion, and you have to have a D&C. It is just as easy to speculate that this woman let her condition go on for so long and she was so weakened she couldn't survive the surgery, as opposed to say the doctors waited for so long because of Georgia's abortion law. In fact, Georgia's abortion law is very clear. It is very clear. You yourself can read the law and see it for yourself that if the fetus has no heartbeat or it's a medical emergency, the doctors can intervene. The fetus clearly did not have a heartbeat in this case because it was only a part of one. Most of it had actually been flushed away. And also it was a medical emergency. Perhaps we might be able to conclude as well that it took her multiple days before she decided to go to the emergency room. And by the time she was there, her condition was so weak, perhaps the doctors weren't sure she could survive the surgery. But at the end, it became clear it was the only way. And she didn't survive the surgery. Instead, ProPublica and the Democrats decided to do this hit job on Georgia because they're trying to help Kamala Harris. There's a moral of a story here you've got to clearly understand here and take away. Number one, the moral of the story is how clearly coordinated ProPublica is with the Democrats. They've done the hit jobs on the Supreme Court. They've run this hit job. They didn't even talk to this woman's doctors or the hospital. They just ran the story as speculation, and Kamala Harris's team seized it, is running ads on it, as are the Democrats in the state of Georgia, treating it as fact. The level of coordination between the media and the Democrats is overwhelmingly clear in this case. The other thing that should be overwhelmingly clear to every single one of you is that Republicans, therefore, have to be on their A game. This is something the GOP has been missing for a while. Which is something that I got to point out at a sheer frustration over and over and over again. The Republican Party used to be on its A game because it's not like this is new. The media and the Democrats have been out to get us all the time. Even before Ronald Reagan, go back to Nixon. The Democrats and the media have worked in conjunction to get us. But Republicans used to be very sharp. Go back to the argument between George H.W. Bush and Dan Rather live on television when I was a little boy. I remember that argument live on television. George H.W. Bush savaging Dan Rather did damage to CBS News' reputation. It helped George H.W. Bush. Look at how J.D. Vance handles the media on a regular basis when he's confronted by them with their questions. Republicans have to be on their A game. But back to J.D. Vance. What has J.D. Vance done in the last couple of weeks? He's helped seed a narrative about stolen pets in Springfield, Ohio, for which there still exists no actual evidence that it happened. And the media has been able to dismiss the GOP as fringe conspiracy theorists over that, as opposed to J.D. Vance and Donald Trump making a big deal about the overwhelmed social services in Springfield, Ohio, which is easily proven and everyone agrees with. We've got to be on our A game. Catering to the fringe right on social media is how we lose this election. And time again these days, Republicans are catering to the fringe mob on social media instead of to everyone else. Here are the Democrats working with a left-wing media institution to coordinate a story to persuade women in Georgia that they need to vote for the Democrats. The story is not true. The story is easily debunked. Kudos to the local newspaper in Atlanta for allowing a physician to debunk the story. But it's another example of why we must stop presuming ourselves to be victims and be on our A game at all times. And too many Republicans have decided they'd rather be hysterical.